So the other thing to think about when you're trying to choose a diet for a child is what other food intolerances. So you may be doing a diet like the gluten and casein-free diet or something and not seeing the results that you wanted to see. Maybe there's some things that are still outstanding. And so there's other things to look into, what I call just a whole host of food intolerances. And these are other substances, some of them artificial, some of them natural, that certain people just have a difficult time processing given their biochemistry. And sometimes children with a variety of these different detoxification, digestive, and immune system challenges have trouble with these natural chemicals in foods, and so we want to just take a look at those. So there is a diet called the Feingold diet, and that involves removing phenols, a type of phenol called salicylates. And the phenols, the artificial phenols, are things like artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, also additives like MSG, and these additives are known to be associated with asthma. There's studies of asthma and artificial colors, hyperactivity, attention challenges, and all sorts of things. So getting these artificial ingredients out of the diet is essential and actually so helpful for everyone in the family. There might be a father with migraines or a mother with certain pain-related things, and getting these additives and artificial things out of the diet is a really simple and powerful way to approach the diet and make improvements to it. There are also naturally occurring compounds in foods, like I mentioned, the phenols that occur in certain fruits and vegetables that are called salicylates. These are things that occur in apples, grapes, berries. Now these are very healthy foods, but when your body can't process them, then there's a challenge and they can create all sorts of things. Some of the common symptoms are red cheeks, red ears, hyperactivity, and looking at those and removing some of those foods can be helpful. One of the ways to start to suspect whether there's a challenge with these foods is when there's a kind of an addiction or almost an obsession with some of these foods. So sometimes I'll see children with only eating apples, apple juice, or grapes and raisins and grape juice and those types of things. That gives you a clue that there might be a problem processing these foods, because when you can't process them, these chemicals that should get broken down build up and can start to act on the brain in ways such as hyperactivity and sort of a kind of addiction to these chemicals. Other things like glutamates, oxalates, phytates, lectins, all of these things are just things to be aware of that exist in foods, but I just want to go into a couple of them. Glutamates are in one form in the MSG, the artificial glutamate type of foods, but also there's naturally occurring glutamates, things such as peas and tomatoes and things like that. And so if you have children that are really heavily consuming those types of foods, then you really want to look at those and take those out of the diet. They can become very addictive. Things like soy sauce and Vegemite and things like that can be very high in glutamates. And then the other one I want to talk about are oxalates. Oxalates are those sharp crystals that can create kidney stones for some people. But those sharp crystals, when they're not bound properly in the gut, can leak into the body. In the gut, they can create a lot of inflammation and pain, and also in the body tissues, they can create a lot of pain as well. And so these oxalates are something we want to look at. These oxalates are naturally occurring in certain things like beans and nuts. Also certain vegetables and certain fruits like leafy green vegetables or blueberries. And again, these are not bad foods. It's just if your body doesn't have the ability to process them properly, they can create a lot of discomfort or problems. So looking at how the body is processing them, understanding how there's some biochemical principles behind all of this, things like methylation and transsulfuration and sulfation, things that you don't necessarily need to know all the details of, but when these biochemical systems aren't working properly, the ability to process and detoxify these substances becomes diminished, and these substances start to act on the body and on the brain in ways that can be problematic for a lot of children. So look at as many of these. What's a good thing to do is look at your child's diet and figure out where there might be challenges. Start to keep a list of when you see problems with certain foods and figure out what those foods are, and then look them up online and find out. Maybe these lists are similar. Maybe there's a lot of glutamate foods or a lot of phenol foods, other things like amines, other types of phenols like bananas or tomatoes. So looking at all of these, try to find commonalities if you can, start to figure out what some of these foods are, remove them from the diet, and see what changes you start to see, because you'll be surprised. Sometimes simply removing a few of these key foods can really make a big difference and a lot of improvement in children.